Hello there, good evening. So today I'm going to be doing my bilateral salpingectomy update video. I'm going to talk about basically days 5 through 18, I guess, of recovery because today was day 18. It's done basically. But I wanted to let you know how the rest of recovery was because it was very different every single day still for a while. And I also wanted to unfortunately go on a side quest, and um, I do have to talk about another medical thing that came up because I do think if you're getting a bilateral salpingectomy, it is likely something that could be relevant to you as a sexually active adult. So, and I also just wanted to clarify that some things that were going on towards the end of my first video were not from my bilateral salpingectomy. So there will be a bit of a side quest. Have some patience with me. It's important information that, especially if you live in the US right now, you kind of really need to know. We'll get there. This is also going to be very different energy from my last one. It was in the middle of the day. I'd had some caffeine. I was all excited. Right now, I'm coming down from my first day back at the gym. And it's like 9 p.m. and I'm super wiped. I've already had dinner and everything. I've already had a shower, but I still have my makeup on, but it's melting off of my face because it went through a whole gym workout. So forgive my crusty eyeliner, but we went through a whole workout together. And I also drove to the gym in my car with no AC. So it's rough. But yeah, let's just get started. So last time that I saw you, it was day 5. And I was having some uncomfortable vaginal symptoms that were listed as possible symptoms of the procedure, but I was noticing a little bit of odor, and that was one of the red flag symptoms, but it was very mild, and it was almost, TMI. There's going to be a lot of TMI happening here, okay? We're all on the same page. It was a gynecological surgery. Thank you. I it almost kind of reminded me of back when I used to have periods. I don't get them anymore because I'm on testosterone. I am a trans man. I use he, him pronouns. I'm super hairy, as you'll see in a second. But I do still wear makeup, and right now I kind of have a more feminine haircut and stuff. It's just how I like to style myself, if you're wondering. But it was kind of like when I used to have a period. So I was like, maybe I'm just like shedding some stuff. I had some cramps, some uterine cramps, which is normal after the procedure. So I thought maybe I was just shedding some old stuff or something. And then I went back to work the next day. My first shift back was an 8.5 hour management shift at my job, and it was a closing shift. So I had 8.5 hours of being a manager and then also closing a store. Don't do that your first day back. You can go back to a desk job within 2 to 3 days of your procedure. You only recover from surgery once. I did it really slow and careful, especially considering how physically healthy I am. And I'm so glad I did. Take time. Save up some time at work or some money if you don't get paid time off at your job. And just take some time and then schedule your first few shifts back to be shorter, especially if you're on your feet all day or it's a high stress environment, or even if you're using your brain a lot, because your brain takes a ton of calories and energy to work and your body's busy fixing other shit. So even if it's like really mentally rigorous, I would try to have your first few shifts back as like 4 to 6 hour shifts. Closing my store was what closing my store often is, and it somehow turned into a nearly 9.5 hour shift. My first day back, it was rough. I felt quite dizzy at times and super tired. I kept telling myself, I think this will be the worst, though. I think I'll be okay after today, but today is hard. I felt very dizzy, and I would randomly, my incisions would just get sore, and I would just have to sit down, and I had to use a stool to do a lot of things, and bend down to pick stuff up really carefully and things like that. But I would find that the soreness would kind of flare, and then I would listen to it, and I would sit down for a little bit, and then it would clear out, and I would feel better, and I could get up and move again. And it was really towards the end of my shift that I struggled. So it was really hard, and I don't think I still think 5 days is more than enough in a lot of cases. Maybe it was appropriate considering the type of job I have. but you probably don't need a whole lot longer. I would just really recommend shorter, easier shifts back. It just makes sense coming back from surgery. It's a really easy surgery to recover from, but it's still surgery. So day 6, went back to work, and day 6 was the hardest because day 6, the odor was clearly something was wrong. And at this point, I knew it was one of the red flag symptoms listed. I didn't have any other symptoms of anything serious happening, but I closed again at my job, and I had felt a lot better. Day 2 was a lot better and easier at my job, but I still wasn't quite with it. I felt like I could almost keep up with everyone. I felt so slow. I was walking so slow. It was so frustrating. I was recovering. Day 2 was better, but it was so hard at the same time because my symptoms had me to the point that when I would go use the restroom and pull down my underwear to use the restroom, I would cry because I was grossed out and scared. And I knew something was pretty blatantly wrong and that I needed to call my surgeon the next morning. I didn't have any red flag symptoms that I thought made me need to go to the ER or anything, but I knew something was off. So I talked to some people. Plenty of people were like, your body might just be shedding dead tissue after the surgery. And I was like, well, they just took my fallopian tubes. I really shouldn't be shedding much. And it's been 6 days now. This is weird. So I called the surgeon the next morning. I was scheduled a mid-shift. Mid-shifts were the best because I think even if you aren't a manager, if you work at something that's like a business that has opening and closing operations, that's more responsibility even if you aren't manager. I think middle of the day, so you don't have to get up early and you don't have to be at work super late, is just best. At this point also, when I said that I had the zoomies and I was excited about it in the last video, that was me getting restless. And literally by night 2 that it happened, it was me feeling the need to go fucking sprint at 1 a.m. because I was so anxious and wound up without the gym, and my circadian rhythm was getting fucked. So I overslept for that shift, and I ended up calling the surgeon. It was after 10 a.m. and I was supposed to work 11 to 7, and they were like, that sounds like an unrelated vaginal infection, unfortunately, and we can move your post-op up to Monday instead of Thursday, because I found out it was going to be Thursday the 2nd, July the 2nd, and my surgery was the 19th, so it was like 13 days or whatever. And in my head, I was like, no, I want to be just like cleared for everything. Hopefully a lot of stuff at the gym, maybe not squatting and deadlifting yet, but like I just want to be cleared for as much as possible. I don't want to move it up any sooner. And she was like, or we close at noon today. It was after 10 a.m. and she's like, you can come get a self-swab. I was like, fuck. This really matters to me. Like, my vaginal health matters a lot to me. I've been very active the past few months, and I've been really proud of my body for handling a lot of fun, exciting stuff. It's worth it. I remembered off the top of my head, I was like, I remember them telling me before, because I was dealing with a yeast infection a couple months ago because I took some antibiotics and it was urgent care and they didn't prescribe me difalcan to prevent it. And they were like, hey, if the treatment doesn't work, come back to us, because we have detailed panels that can actually identify what strains of different yeast and stuff or anything you have going on down there. We have much more detailed panels and we can help you determine what the best route of medication is. So I was like, you know, they have detailed panels at the OBGYN, let me just go. And I asked my shift to be bumped back to 12, booked it across town in my car with no AC before my shift. Booked it, barely made it in time, did this frantic self-swab, and I asked the lady, I was like, well, how long does it take to get results back for y'all typically, because every place is different, and she was like, well, I like to tell people at least a week or 2, and I was like, oh, great. And I said it in the most sarcastic, hateful way, and I felt so bad immediately, but then I went and took my test, brought it back in a rush, sweating, pissed off, and I was like, I think I did it wrong, I broke the seal, and she was like, you're fine, that's actually correct, and I was like, okay. Well, thank you so much for your time again. Like, I was trying to smooth it over. I felt so bad. I was a dick. But in my head, I was like, well, I see my surgeon Thursday. What the fuck is the point? But as I was leaving, I was like, no, I'm glad I did this. This was the right thing to do. And this is also what people were telling me to do. Just go ahead and go get it checked. So it was Friday. I knew I wasn't going to hear anything for a while. So it was once again a really bad symptom day. Once again, every time I would go use the restroom and pull my underwear down, I would feel like crap. But I knew that I had taken the step to find out what was going on, so I felt better. And if it was just something weird off from surgery, it should clear up soon. And if not, I had taken the steps to get it treated, whatever was going on. Yeah. Can you tell where this is going? It's not going the best place ever, but it's okay. So the next couple days I started to feel better and better. The first day at work, really hard. Day 2, honestly, I felt mostly better and almost like I could keep up with everything. I was just now having this other thing going on that turned out to not be from the surgery, like I said, that was starting to bring me down and stress me out and cause other uncomfortable symptoms. But my incisions were feeling better and better. They really only got sore at work the first day or two, and then by day 3 or 4 at work, I was having trouble not accidentally lifting things that were technically over what I should be lifting. I was getting with it fast, and I think inside of me, internally, this was probably when things were just about good to go, actually. But I went through the weekend. This is when I hit a personal problem where what I regret about my surgery, I regret 2 things. 1, I just wish I could have known what was going on downstairs beforehand, and I could have taken care of it before. I wish that. And 2, I wish I had been honest with myself about what I could not manage to do alone, and what I genuinely needed help and to ask for, and to arrange that before my surgery or soon after. Because what happened is there was one thing I couldn't figure out how to do myself easily and safely, and that was my laundry. And that's because I live in an apartment that doesn't have the units that you can hook up a washer and dryer to. You have to go use a laundromat, and I live upstairs. So what I was running into is I couldn't figure out how to get my laundry up and down my stairs without lifting it. Because just, you can kind of drag it up the stairs one at a time, but there's no easy way to drag something downstairs, you know? I could not for the life of me figure out how to get it up and down my stairs alone. And it was the one thing, you know, I could just like buy smaller amounts of water instead of a giant case of water. I could bring in my groceries 1 to 2 bags at a time. This is the one thing I could not figure out, and when I realized I needed to ask for help, the people who did want to help me didn't have enough time, because I was running out of clean socks and underwear, and especially the underwear in the situation I was in, I was going through them a little faster, and it was very important for me to have clean ones on hand. So I put both myself and my friends in a situation where they felt guilty and they didn't need to. There were other people that I really knew had time, who were spending other kinds of time with me, that I was pretty bitter that they would not help me. People left me hanging. Certain types of people in my life, and it was the one thing I needed, because they definitely wanted to know when I was safe to get back to adult activities after my surgery, but they were not willing to help with the one thing I needed help with. And at that point, I felt so emotionally volatile about that kind of emotional betrayal and everything, that I really just wanted to do it myself anyways. So I felt like if I let anyone help me after that point, that my emotions would be messy, and even if, you know, I didn't want anyone to have to deal with how weird I got about it in my head. As a hyper-independent person who should have asked for help more during this process, and by the time I did, it was too late, I very much had I want to go back into my shell, fuck everyone, I will find a way to do everything ever, I would have driven myself home from my surgery if it was legal, like, blah, 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 blah. You know, if you don't know, it's illegal to drive home because of the general anesthesia, because you're drunk. But, I did find a way to do it. I took my laundry in 6 different small trash bags. small, one at a time. I'm sorry that I'm stuttering so much. I'm genuinely super tired from the gym, but I'm really happy, and I think this is probably, honestly, a little easier to follow than when I'm super caffeinated. Let me know what you prefer. But, so I did find a way, and I just had to do it in 3 separate trips to my car, and in my head I was like, I feel like this is more physical work and stress than just carefully lifting it down my stairs. And honestly, it probably was, because I'm thinking about how I felt then and how I feel now. I probably was safe to lift it, but I really wanted to say I did everything right while recovering, because I was very worried about my right incision, which I didn't need to be, it turns out, but I was worried about it. It seemed like it was healing slower than the others. I did feel a little sore after I did it myself, but nothing bad happened, and it took me a long time, and then I dragged it one at a time up the steps, and it was super annoying. But I was like, I will find help next week, or I will probably be cleared in time to just do my laundry myself next week. I just wish I'd been honest with myself and not put myself in this position where I ended up like proving my hyper independence to myself just because I was dumb, you know. Hyper independence is so easy to fall back on and give yourself excuses for, but it's dysfunctional. And it not only hurts you, it can hurt other people around you because they're stressed for you because you did it to yourself and you put yourself in a bad position. So it was just laundry, but it signified a lot more to me, and I should have. The thing was that people were available, but it would be days later, or we were working at the same time. So it was no one's fault but my own. Genuinely. Like, yes, there were people who left me hanging, but I was about to find out because of other things. The true colors were shown throughout this whole process. Holy shit. And so many in such positive ways. But things were about to take a turn. And so I go through the weekend, I get my laundry done. Monday was an extremely hard day. This was day 10 or 12. Wait, what was it? Yeah, it was probably day 10, because Thursday was going to be 13 days. Monday was hard because I got a text notification. Well, I got a missed call from my OBGYN. And then quickly after, I got a text notification at work that my post-op had been rescheduled for the 6th Monday. It was Monday when I got that text. They postponed it to be a full week later when it was Monday and I was going to see them on Thursday. And I had a moment where I sat there and I was like, I can't do another week. I can't do this. I cannot do another week of sitting around waiting for my life. But I'm also not willing to risk trying to lift and stuff, which is what I was focused on personally, before my surgeon says I can. And I had a moment where I felt like I couldn't do it, which is so funny because only a few hours later, things were going to take such a fucking turn, dude. I've had a crazy week, if you can't tell. So I called them and I was like, is there any way I can see her any sooner? And they were like, no, we're so sorry. Monday's the best and she's busy as fuck that day. They didn't say fuck, but they could have, and I would have been like, okay. A couple hours later, I get a notification that I have some prescriptions ready to pick up at Walmart, 2 of them. And I was like, I ordered no refills. And then a little bit later, I get a chart notification from the OBGYN side of my care that I had prescriptions assigned to me. So in there, I'm like shaking a little bit. It's weird. I've talked to people about this, but I don't know why I'm shaking a little bit. It's okay. I'm okay. But I saw the full names, because they're like half censored through the Walmart email and stuff. The full names of the medications, and I saw that I was supposed to take one for 7 days and then start a different one for 7 more days. And I was like, damn, I'm strapped into these meds. Like, what is going on with me? And then I Googled what they were for. Honestly, the fact that I had 2 different medications in my head, I was like, this has got to be something kind of complicated. I Googled it. I was prescribed doxycycline for 7 days and then moxifloxacin for 7 days after, when I Googled what that is used for. Because the reason I Googled it is they sent this notification at like 4 p.m. And I was like, if I don't get a call or a portal notification that my test results are live in the next hour, I'm probably not going to hear from them today. And I'm going to have to go tonight not knowing what's going on with me. When I Googled what that medication combination is used for, it is used for a bacterial STI called Mycoplasma genitalium, or pelvic inflammatory disease. You typically know when you have pelvic inflammatory disease. It's pretty intense. And when I read the first part, just knowing my behavior the past few months, the fact that I'm someone who has multiple partners that I was fluid bonded with, and they had multiple partners, which means we weren't using protection. I was getting very regular STI panels. One of the first things I see when I'm looking up what this thing is, because I'm like, this is probably my situation. One, my symptoms match up as I'm starting to get them. And two, it is not part of standard STI panels here in the US, despite the fact that it is as common as chlamydia right now. And I sit there and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I have an STI, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to wait an entire day to find out. For sure. So I didn't feel right reaching out to any potentially exposed partners until I got verification. But in the meantime, I will say, even though it was so heavy to get my post-op postponed and me be like, I can't handle this, congrats, you also have an STI. And personally, in my case, it was the first time if you can't tell, that is what ended up happening. My first time ever being diagnosed. And I'm a very sex positive person, but to go through that 10 days after surgery is a bit much. And I am kind of glad I saw the medications and then I did research, because I spent that evening researching about this STI and about the fact that it is so not commonly tested for. I was already gathering up potential information through Google where my partners could get tested, and also kind of practicing in my head what I thought I should say to them. So I had time to plan. The next day, I went and picked up my medication in the morning and took my first dose, not for sure knowing what it was for. And then I did get a call around 12 that day, I think, and the OBGYN, they assigned a different one, not my surgeon, to give me the news and to prescribe me everything and to go over my results. She was very careful with how she brought it up, and I told her, I was like, girl, I Googled what they're for. And she was like, all right, so you kind of know what's going on. I love that for you. She was probably like, oh, thank God, because I'm sure it's hard to tell people. And she was immediately like, it's really common. And in my head, I'm like, okay, why aren't more places testing for it? I'm already upset about this. I was about to get a lot more upset about this. But this is why I want to talk about it, because she was immediately like, it's so common right now. And she told me, my local health department, my first question was, where can my partners get tested? Because I got lucky. I was already seeing an OBGYN, so I got a really thorough swab test. And she told me my local health department. She was wrong. We'll get into that. But we kind of went over the medication a little bit, and of course, she also mentioned that I had BV, which you can have BV and it can make you more likely to get Mycoplasma genitalium, bacterial vaginosis, which is like your own bacteria being fucked up. Can happen for a lot of reasons. I've had it a couple times in my life, not chronically, but a couple times. Or you can get Mycoplasma genitalium and it can make you like have it chicken or egg type thing. Who knows? But I get off the phone with her, and I think it was a couple hours later, I looked up, I was like, wait a second, does the medication I'm on also treat BV? And it was like, no, you have to take a separate one. And they didn't prescribe me anything for that, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of just like hoped it was wrong. I was like, I can't deal with that right now. I'm going through so much. I'm about to have some really vulnerable conversations. And I want to keep this mostly just about me and about my medical experience, but the things that I experienced, there are some people in my life who, through surgery and also through this experience I had, their true colors shone bright in the most beautiful way, and I know who I want to keep around now. And then you're gonna find out some things about some people that you didn't want to know. So, it is what it is. There was a variety of responses. There were some complete lack of responses, and I don't know if these people are out there taking care of themselves, because of course one of the first things I said is, by the way, 90% of people with penises will not show symptoms. 50% of people with vaginas won't show symptoms. And there's a chance that I was symptom-free, and I had it, and then the trauma of surgery caused the symptoms to get irritated and make themselves known. There's no way for me to know. I have no idea. My panels weren't checking for it. And once I had some people who were trying to find care, my local health department turned them away. They will not test people for Mycoplasma genitalium, even though, yes, it is a bacterial STI that you take antibiotics to cure completely. It will go away. Sometimes there are more resistant strains that even my course, which is the doxy than the moxifloxacin, there are some rare cases that it's not enough and they have to do an even more aggressive route. It's very rare though. Mine is like the middle road that some people might not need that strong of it. They could maybe do amoxicillin instead of the moxie, but mine covers most cases. So I feel like I'm in good hands, and they probably also identified the strain with me as well. I'm not sure, but they seemed very confident that I could get it treated and get back to normal. And the hardest part was just like, my fucking health department isn't testing for it. So you can get it a lot of times tested through your PCP or an urgent care. There's a short list of urgent cares offering the tests. LabCorp, you can order it directly, but it's going to cost you. And here's the dealio. My immediate concern was PCP and urgent care. There are so many people my age who don't have health insurance. I'm so lucky and blessed that I do, and that's kind of why I stay at my job, even though I struggle with it sometimes. It's not the best for my personality, but I got health benefits. I don't want to give those up. And I've talked to a lot of people about it since, and there are some people who've been looking in their cities who live far away from me, and they have not found anywhere that they can for sure get a test. I will say, I'm not saying I think 1 million people are running around with MGen. We would know if it was that bad, but like I said, it's as common as chlamydia currently. And if you don't treat it, if you don't for a long time, I don't want to scare you, but it can cause long-term complications like pelvic inflammatory disease, chronic urethritis, things you don't want. And of course, if you are an empathetic human, you also don't want to be spreading around something without knowing it. So I just want people to know this is a thing. I knew I was higher risk just because of my sexual behavior and the choices I was making as a grown adult. And I was getting a lot of panels. I took doxyprep for anti-HIV for a while, but it fucked my stomach up. So I eventually took a break from that, and I was eventually probably going to try the injections. But now that I've been through everything I've been through, personally, I want to modify my behavior. And I would, if you are someone who, for whatever reason, whether it's because it's casual or it's not, you're just non-monogamous, polyamorous, whatever, if you are a person who has multiple partners, and especially if they also have multiple partners, please look into where you can get tested. And if you can't, I would consider strongly having some more boundaries around barriers, protections, condoms, etc., and so forth. Just protect yourself. Know where you can get tested. And like I said, if it's not available to you, maybe be a little safer until hopefully the US catches up to Australia and there's somewhere else that is currently regular panels. Not to be a fun killer, but not to bring you 5th grade sex ed. Don't get chlamydia and die. Wear condoms if you're hoeing. We all know this stuff, but like, I think it's very human to have higher risk periods of your life. For some people, especially like more hypersexual people like myself. And like, you know, like I said, if you're seeking out a bi-salve, it's likely that you're sexually active in some way. And unfortunately, you know, even if you're a monogamous person, sometimes cheating happens and things like that. So even like for your friends, if you have friends who are in hoe phases and stuff, let them know there's something going around your panels aren't checking for. You cannot count on your panels. You also need to be having really honest communication. I would recommend more barrier protection and getting to know people a little bit more, you know, because what I learned is it wasn't just scary how little people cared about my health as I was diagnosed with an STI 10 days into surgery recovery. Honestly, what scared me more was how little some people cared about their own, and I would not have let them that close to me had I known it. But I learned a lot from this situation. Let's wrap it up. let's wrap it up, because at this point, genuinely, I was suffering more with MGen than I was from recovering from my incisions. And MGen was going to get pretty gnarly for me personally. If you're just wondering, my worst symptoms were discharge that was gross and uncomfortable and also irritated my skin, so that like my underwear would hurt me and stuff like that. And just walking, the friction of walking was painful, and a lot of discomfort in my urethra, pain and discomfort and almost like itching when I would pee, and like my urethra like contracting irritably. It's pissed off. So I'm so glad I got it when I did, because there are some people who just have no idea what's going on with them and just run around with these symptoms for months. And a lot of times, I've heard of people who've had it for like up to a year because it's not being fucking tested. And once they got treatment, they were okay. So genuinely, I don't want to like freak you out completely. It kind of is just like the new chlamydia on the block. We just don't have updated testing for it. You will likely be okay, but I just want you to be careful. But I was dealing with like the discharge was getting a little better to the point where I was more comfortable, and then the urethra stuff started, and I was not having a good time. So I called Friday, 2 weeks after my surgery. I called them to be like, hey, I saw that I also tested for BV. Are we gonna do anything about that? And they didn't answer, so I left a message. But my post-op was gonna be Monday, and suddenly things just started. I was off for 2 days. The Tuesday that I was diagnosed, I was off that Tuesday and Wednesday. And I remember when I realized what I was going through and the conversations I was going to have, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do 2 days off of work when I can't go to the gym or swim or anything until I personally just want to be cleared by my surgeon. I'm pretty sure I'm fine, but I don't know for sure. But I made it through all of it. And a lot of it is because I found some amazing people that have just been like filling my heart and filling my cup in so many ways. Thank you so much. But I also got to a point where I did sit around and cry that I went through surgery and was diagnosed with an STI 10 days later, when I live alone and I didn't have any close romantic partners that I trusted anywhere physically near me at the time. They could only support me from afar, more long distance people. And most of my friends kind of live far and are busy and stuff like that. I cried a few times for myself. And then what really started to stick out to me was that even in moments of intense suffering, when it just felt like, okay, I have my post-op now, but now I also have to wait who knows how many days for this medication to make me feel better. Because if you don't know, doxycycline weakens the bacteria so that moxifloxacin can do its job. And I asked my doctor, I was like, do you have to go through the whole course of doxy and then start the moxie to start to feel better? Because that would make sense to me. And she was like, honestly, that's what I've heard. So I already knew I was going to be on antibiotics for like 7 to 8 days, not feeling better. And it just felt like the day that I could get back to normal and feel better was just being pushed further into the future. And I would sit there and cry about it because I just wanted that day to come so bad. And then finally I realized that when you're sitting around crying in physical pain and emotional pain and distress, or one or the other, because sometimes I would be one, the other, sometimes I was both. Sometimes I was really not okay in either way. I realized that I was sitting there crying, time was still passing, and that better day was still getting closer to me as I sat there and cried. Every tear that dropped down my face, another second was passing by, getting me closer to a better time in my life. And that was something that I didn't have to, it didn't involve anyone else, showing up for me in any grand way. It didn't involve me being hyper independent and being like, I can do this. It was just a matter of fact of life that I could fall back on, that time is still moving. I won't be stuck in this moment forever. And that was really important. And I do feel like if I can handle being diagnosed with an STI 10 days after surgery, I can handle anything for a while. Because holy shit, dude, this has been crazy. But things just, once I felt that, I was able to let it go. And Monday came like that. Because I was working a decent bit. Once those 2 days were off, I worked every day, including Monday, actually. And things started to get exciting because my belly button glue on my incision came off day 12. Yeah, day 12. The belly button glue incision came off, and there had been a bunch of coagulated blood on it, and I saw that underneath there was just this tiny little cute stitch in my belly button, and it was like nothing. It was like nothing had ever happened, and I was like, holy shit, what's going on under my hip incisions? And I was so excited. And the left one started to lift, and I was like, let me be careful. I don't, because I did look it up, and it was like, if it doesn't come off in 10 to 14 days, you can gently encourage it off with some soap and water, but you're just supposed to be really careful. And I was like, I just want to be good. I just want to be good. I want to be good. I want to be cleared to do everything. I don't want to do anything that could risk my recovery. At this point, I just had cat scratches under there, and I was being paranoid. But the left one started to lift, and then there was one night I just couldn't resist. I got it off, and then there was just a little actual scratch, but it wasn't bleeding or anything. It was just a little shallow cut, and it didn't go down into the incision. The incision was healed. There was just a little thing, and I was like, oh my god. But it felt like there was a bigger gap in the incision on my right side, and I was like, I'm not touching it. And then it started to lift on the sides too, and I was able to kind of pull away the glue around it so that there was just a glue right over the incision, and it felt like it was holding a scab on there that needed to be on there. Every day my discharge symptoms were getting better, but the urethra thing was not feeling great. I was able to tolerate the doxycycline pretty well. By the way, post-exposure pills, the 2-course doxy things that you take after an unprotected sexual encounter or a condom break that prevent chlamydia and gonorrhea and things like that. First off, they aren't 100% effective. They don't completely clear you, but also they don't work at all on Amgen. Because there was someone who had the response of, oh, I took the post-exposure pills. That doesn't matter. It doesn't work for this. Great, right? So, sucks. It sucks. But I was doing pretty well. I was just stressed about, not eating dairy. So I just eat my dairy right in the middle of the day and take my probiotics. But, you won't die if you eat dairy. It just kind of inhibits some of the absorption. And I was like, once again, I'm locking in. I'm doing this 100% right. Fuck this shit. For real. I am treating this effectively. And then I saw her on Monday. I had my post-op. I did sit there and cry because I was overwhelmed dealing with everything, and I knew I was going to talk to her about the STI situation and be like, hey, what about the BV? And I was sitting there alone. I did go to my appointment. I had my beard grown in because I will say, working that many days in a row and stuff, I kind of stopped taking care of myself. I was showing up to work with nails glued on since I wasn't lifting weights and really nice makeup for a few days. But as I kept having to work and show up and deal with the psychological stress and physical stress of the STI, I just would show up. I mean, I think I worked 2 or 3 days in a row where I didn't even draw eyebrows on. I showed up in dress code with my hair up out of the way, and that was it. That day I had eyebrows on, but I had let my beard grow in because I hadn't worn makeup in days, and I was wearing a skirt, and I decided to just still wear it even though I changed my top. So I had hairy legs and a skirt and a beard, and I was sitting at the OBGYN, and I kind of was like, I guess this does look a little funky. I don't care what other people think, but I guess it does look weird. But then there was a lady who was sitting in the waiting room, and she's like, your outfit is so cute. So I got hyped up in the waiting room, which was cool. But then they took me back there. The nurse went over stuff with me. She was like, yeah, I'm not sure what they were thinking with not prescribing you anything for the BV. We'll see. Side quest fun fact, I had my next STD panel scheduled for the next day, which was today. Yesterday was my post-op. So literally that day, I had to reschedule it because my doctor finally responded to me and was like, yeah, we need to postpone that until after your treatment. Also, yes, they should have prescribed you something for your BV because I told her my whole situation. She was like, yes, come back later, get that treated, and then we'll do a panel later. She also told me at 12 p.m. when my appointment was for 1:30 the next day, and they have a 24-hour cancellation notice $50 fee if you cancel within less than 24 hours, they charge you a $50 fee. And I was like, Jesus Christ, woman, you're giving me a heart attack. So I gotta cancel it in time. Thank God. But I did. She was late. You know, it was a 3:30 p.m. appointment with a surgeon, so who was busy all day. So she showed up at like 3:45. I did not recognize her without her surgical cap. Holy fuck, she has like long, pretty blonde highlighted hair, and I was like, "Who is this lady?" And she was like, "How was surgery recovery?" And immediately I was like, "It was great." Until I was diagnosed with MGen 10 days in. And she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "It's okay. I also had BV, and y'all didn't send anything for me." And she was like, "I'll send it." I was like, "Okay, thank God." And then I asked her, I was like, "All right, so today's my last day of doxycycline, by the way. I start the moxifloxacin tomorrow. Can I treat the BV and the moxie at the same time? Because 7 days of doxy, 7 days of moxie, 7 days of an antibiotic for the BV. First off, that's 21 days of antibiotics. Also, 21 days of medicine, not to be lewd and crude, but to fix my fucking vagina. I was like, I can't do it. Please let me. I did look it up, and it did say they can and do often treat them at the same time. She was like, it's gonna be rough. If you want to try to do it and muscle through it, you can. But if you start throwing up a lot on both of them, stop. Because they both fuck your stomach up, unsurprisingly. But I have a really tough stomach, and when I told her, I was like, well, I've been chilling on Doxy, and I would just rather soldier through it, she was like, you probably can then. So I was like, okay, only 14 days of coochie medicine. Cool. I also was prescribed a difulcan. So I was literally prescribed 2 different antibiotics for the STI, difulcan to prevent a yeast infection from the antibiotics, and then also BV medication. So yeah, that was my post-op. It just started with STI drama. But she was like, all right, let's take a look at your incisions. And I was like, okay, I have some questions about physical activity. And she just like literally did this and was like, I'm sure you're fine to do whatever, but we'll talk about it if you want to. So she looked at my incisions, and I was like, oh, look at my belly button, it looks great. Look at my left side, it looks great. Oh, the right side, there's like, I think a little bit of glue on it, and I'm just a little worried about it. And she was like, oh yeah, that's just glue. Do you want me to get it for you? Let me get it for you. She was like ready. So she whacked off the glue, and underneath it, there was a very similar looking little cat scratch to the left side. But it was a little deeper and a little wider. And she was like, here, let me get a little bit of adhesive, put this down, put this little strip thingy, I'll show you in a second, to just pull those edges closed and help it close a little bit faster for you. And then she said they looked great. And I was like, cool. So obviously I can call y'all back if for some reason I still have symptoms and I'm worried about this situation that I've got going on downstairs. She was like, of course. And then she was like, what are your questions about activity? And I was like, so I'm good to like lift and stuff at work. And she's like, absolutely. And I was like, okay, I'm really into the gym. And she's like, oh, I remember you telling me that. Yeah, like, I'm sure you're fine to do whatever. And I was like, okay, I really like heavy squatting and also she had like an assistant there. She was like, is it cool if he's here? He was a guy. And whenever I started talking about lifting, he was just like nodding. But I was like, I like to do like squatting and deadlifting, like belted heavy intra-abdominal pressure and stuff like that. Hernia risk, right? For big surgeries and stuff. This is a small surgery. And she was like, just listen to your body, but you should be fine. She was like, it's been how many days? And I was like, 17. I know. So she was like, no. So I was cleared for everything, swimming, baths, and everything. Unfortunately, those things are tabled until I feel like I would maybe be okay to swim now. You cannot pass a bacterial STI through chlorine water. Don't worry, I wouldn't be endangering anyone, but if you have symptoms, it'll fucking hurt. So I need to wait a little bit longer. But I'm cleared for everything. Last few notes on the rest. I genuinely, like, I think 10 days in, I was chilling. But that was when the MGen got bad, so I was not chilling. But I think I was chilling from the surgery. As far as, I am a little worried about, you know, putting myself on an intense medication this soon after surgery and the stress of it, but, like, you can't just leave this thing untreated. There were some people who had some pushback and they were concerned about me being put on a fluoroquinoline type of antibiotic. There's no other way to treat this right now, unfortunately. Like I said, a lot of cases do not respond to amoxicillin, and honestly, throwing antibiotics at these various STIs is probably part of the reason we are in this situation, and we're doing our best with what technology we have. But right now, this is the best course of treatment. And, someone was like, there's like irreversible damage associated for some people with these antibiotics. I'm on it for 7 days. I'm a healthy person with no pre-existing health conditions. I did actually ask my daughter. Hello? I don't have one and never will now. I did actually ask my doctor about the boxed warning label about tendon stuff because it's associated with tendinitis and tendon rupture in some cases. As soon as you Google it, it's like mostly people over 60. So I did ask her, is there anything I should do to take care of myself and avoid this as someone who's athletic? She was like, I'm not gonna lie, it's like the extremes of human movement that cause you to be at risk. Either people who are old and they aren't walking enough, they're like barely moving, or like D1 college athletes, extreme distance runners, stuff like that. And she was like, and honestly, it's a short course. You should be fine. So I might look into some collagen because when I looked into it, it seems like there's a collagen breakdown issue that causes, because unfortunately the thing that scares me is that you aren't just at risk while you're on it, it stays for months. And I plan on throwing my heart back into the gym now that I want to narrow down who I'm seeing and sharing my body with. A lot of me going out and doing a lot of fun adult time stuff was me just not knowing how to fix my gym injury and being frustrated with it and just trying to go have fun and get some endorphins in another way. And now I'm like, fuck it, we're going back. We're going back. I took weeks off. That was the longest I've ever been off of the gym. When I got COVID, I missed like 4 workouts in total. 17 days off. And honestly, yes, I could have gone a few days before. But I also needed to prove to myself that if life really demanded it of me, I could be an adult and regulate myself outside of the gym. And all I learned from 17 days off of the gym was that I really fucking like the gym. Still, I never once was happy to just stay home and play video games. I'm just not that person anymore. And honestly, I like that about myself. I love the gym. I showed up today, grinning ear to ear to everyone. If you're wondering what I did for my first day back, I will say I stayed moving as much as I could safely, and I have been progressively, carefully lifting more stuff even a few days before I saw my surgeon. I was progressively lifting more. Like yesterday, I went to Walmart and carried a big case of water and stuff just to see how it felt, and I was throwing it around, of course, because I felt strong too. But my first day back, I decided I wanted to do some sort of compound that would get me excited, some sort of full body movement. I actually decided on Turkish get-ups because those have been really great for my shoulder girdle health as I've been working on my shoulder injury and stuff. And it has some core bracing stuff, but nothing too crazy like a squat or deadlift. So everything else I did was 1 to 2 working sets only of like incline chest press, so it's lighter. Single arm lat pull downs. I did some biceps, some calves, 1 to 2 sets of everything. Hamstring curls, leg extensions, and then some Turkish get-ups. Body saws were the only core engaging thing I did, and I felt like I was going to pass out after a single set. My incisions didn't hurt, but I did feel like I could pass out, so I only did 1 set. I think I was just tired, and I also drove to the gym in my car with no AC. But here are my incisions after a workout as well. I'm wearing these like random shorts because I need to do laundry tomorrow, but my belly button incision is basically fucking nothing. It's on the bottom. She's like gone. She doesn't exist. Left incision is like nothing. And then the right one, it has the little thing whacked over it. This one might scar a bit more. As someone who obviously has scars and stuff, some of which have more sentimental value than they should have, I'm almost kind of sad that they're going to be so faded and little, because I took some cool pictures dressed up with the really obnoxious glue over them and stuff, and I felt like so empowered by this like super visible, like, I chose to be sterilized and I did this for me and I went through it, I stayed out of the gym for 17 days and it was really hard. I could eventually get some tattoos to accentuate them. But I mean, I have some cool photos to commemorate it and stuff, so it's whatever. I don't have tattoo money. I'm desperately saving for a new car money. So that's that. I am not scared of taking the Moxie and stuff. I will be fine. I am not immunocompromised. I'm super tough. I probably won't feel good for a while, and I will be careful in the gym. I have developed like forearm tendonitis, ankle stuff, knee stuff before in the gym, so I'm just gonna listen to it. If it gets bad, chill for a bit. Look up some probably opposite movements of whatever's causing it to help it, type of thing. There's a lot of stuff I've needed to rehab and build strength around anyways. So, but that was my workout. It was literally 1 to 2 sets of everything, which felt annoying and like a waste of time. But I'm not gonna lie, I did 1 set of hamstring curls and I could barely walk after it. And I did it with like 20 pounds lighter than what I was doing before. So, but yeah, I think because it was only 17 days, it really is around the 2-week mark that if you aren't doing much physical activity, that's when things start to break down. But, like I said, I was already starting to try and engage my body more in everyday life as I could tell it was safe. I don't think I lost much muscle. My weight did not significant. I'm tired, I'm sorry. My weight did not significantly go up or down. I kept eating around the same amount right around the surgery time. Because I knew that with the reduced activity, that would be a mild surplus, not an extreme gorging myself one, to give me the nutrients I needed to recover. And then going forward, it was kind of like, it's only going to be a couple weeks. Like, you can pull your food back if you feel like it, if you aren't as hungry. What ended up happening was I couldn't eat dairy, except for like right in the middle of the day, like I said. And I normally use low-fat dairy to just like pad my protein intake up higher. Like I'll have a main, often like meat source of protein, and then I add low-fat cheese or something like that to bump up the total protein of the meal. And I just kind of had to skip it around my doxycycline doses. But also in general, I got moving as soon as I could and just ate at home, ate mostly healthy foods that would work with my medication and stuff. And I do think I lost some muscle and gained some fat. But I also think it looks more obvious to me right now because I lost my muscle glycogen. You lose it pretty fast. You get it back so quickly too, so I'm pretty sure in like 2 or 3 days I'm going to be feeling good. Even though like tomorrow's a rest day, I'm going to be moving at work and doing chores tomorrow evening, and then I'm going to train Thursday, and yeah. Honestly, with only 17 days being off, I think by like next week, if I want to start playing around with some Pendlay rows, some squats, some deadlifts, practicing them, just putting a little bit of weight on, seeing how it feels, I'm sure I'm fine. She told me I was. So that's kind of the plan. Wish me luck on this other journey. I'm talking about it because like I'm a super open person. If you want to judge me for it, you can. I don't really care. I just want to get the information out there that there's something going around. Panels aren't checking for it. Look into how you can protect yourself depending on your lifestyle. I think, like I said, it's going to be the higher risk populations, which I was for a couple of months, that need to watch out for it and look into where they can go. All my luck and well wishes to you. Like I said, my biggest things going away from this are like, be honest with what you need help with. I think between 5 and 7 days off of work, if possible, is best because you only get to recover once. Like I said, there's a lot of ways I could have like rushed some things, and I'm just glad I didn't. I'm just glad I didn't because there was someone who told me they were planning on going to work the day after getting this surgery. And honestly, they will probably be okay because they're going to go in the evening, so that should be plenty of time for all the medicine to wear off. But like, just because it's okay, like, you're going to increase your body's inflammation. Even if nothing bad happens to your incisions or anything, you're going to feel awful physically because of the stress of putting the pressure on yourself of going back to work. My surgeon told me to just take the weekend, but I'm glad I waited 5 days. And like I said, my first shift back was hard, but I think it's just because my job is both psychologically very stressful and physically active for me. So those are my biggest takeaways, and then also that little PSA for those of my maybe slightly higher risk baddies. I see you, I love you. We just need to set up more guardrails for ourselves sometimes, and just communicate. Just be honest with your healthcare professionals in your life and what support you might need to stay safe while you're in your whole face. So sorry for the 5th grade sex ed talk. If you have any questions, let me know. But genuinely, this is such an easy, quick little surgery. And if you don't run into this, unfortunately, surgery sometimes reveals underlying health problems, right? That's just something that happens sometimes, and it happened to me, but it's unlikely. I was sitting there, I was like, I know I'm probably not the only person who's been diagnosed with an STI while they're recovering from surgery, but it's probably not that common, and also it really fucking sucks. I had a completely fine recovery even considering that, so you will do great. And if something does come up, it'll be okay. It really is a small little surgery, and honestly, if I had seen her at that 13-day mark, she probably would have told me I could go to the gym the next day, or the same day if I wanted to. But I am glad I proved to myself I could be okay, but I'm more glad to be back to my normal now. So let me know if you have any questions. Once again, I apologize that things got kind of derailed, but it is part of my recovery story, and it is part of my story. I did my best to keep it just about me, and just the impact it had on me. At the end of the day, shit happens. You know, you play with your fire. We play with fire, get burned. Maybe look into where you can go for your burns, if you're gonna make those kind of decisions. So I would have made different decisions with my sex life had I known there was something going around that my panels weren't checking for, honestly. But I can't change what I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, but you also can't treat what you can't get tested. So especially if you don't have healthcare, especially if you live in a rural area with limited options, look into what you can do before you go crash out via a hoe face. And research methods of transmission and stuff like that, because you might think you're being safe just because you use condoms for preventative sex, and then, or preventative. You're preventing sex. That is the one true STI eliminator, unfortunately. But yeah, I should go. This was a lot. I'm sorry.